You're live.
Okay, thank you very much. The first item on our agenda at this point is the communications with everybody. And I'm going to start with Councillor Cooper today because he spoke quite late last month due to audio challenges. So Councillor Cooper, let's see if you can start it off this week without those same challenges.
Hope you can hear me.
We can. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll try and be brief. It's been a busy month, actually, even with all the social distancing and so forth, but a lot of activity and communication with the community in general. And, obviously Zoom meetings, et cetera, that one has with both the district and the township. But I think it would be important to point out that one of the issues that I spent a lot of time discussing with the community is the solid waste issue, and particularly some of the challenges that we've had at our marinas without bins, for example, not without bins, but bins that were not the right size for some of the marinas, a whole bunch of other issues and related to that matter. And I'm hoping that we can reconvene our committee relating to solid waste and particular, Mayor Kutzior, I'm hopeful that you can assist us in getting what we requested for this committee, which was a costing from the district quite some time ago. To my knowledge, we still have not seen anything. So I would like to point out to all of us that our communities are concerned about solid waste and collection and a variety of different types of collection, including curbside, but certainly in the marinas, there's some pretty big issues. So I'm hoping that we can start with our analysis from a financial perspective, and right now we can't. So that's my report. Thank you.
I'm going to respond, Councillor Cooper, by saying I do plan on communicating with council and the solid waste committee in the near future with what little I've learned in the past month or more, and try to reignite those discussions. Councillor Bocek.
Thank you. A busy month for me down here in Ward 3. One of the main issues I've been contacted about is parking. We have that on our agenda later today. Extreme parking problems on Whites Falls Road, at Whites Falls, and at the Big Chute Marine Railway. Also parking problems at Oak Bay with the repaving that's going on there. They were given a place to park, but they're not parking there. They're parking on the road, which is creating an issue for the fire department. And Crooked Bay Road, of course, which is on the agenda. I had a meeting with a group of concerned citizens from Moore Point to discuss their concerns about the Macy's Bay project. That went very well. It was quite a lengthy meeting, and a lot of things were brought to my attention. I appreciate those folks. Parking control methods is another issue that's come up. We have a fairly extensive pay for parking at the Port Severn Park in place, but people have decided that since the township building is a public space and the Burset House is a public space, that they simply use those for parking and then walk across the street and don't pay for their parking. So I think this needs to be addressed in the future about maybe posting signage or whatever, because we could run into a trouble there. So targeted enforcement is something I want to see come from our bylaw when it comes to parking. 6 Mile Lake and Gloucester Pool, quite a few phone call conversations, nothing face-to-face, about the solid waste garbage concerns. It's a big concern to them as well too. Field, many calls on Sunday of a very popular long weekend about the Baxter Ward transfer station being closed. Probably one of the busiest days. There was no real method for me to find out why it was closed, when it was going to reopen. The District of Muskoka site made no mention of it. So I was trying to field a bunch of phone calls from people trying to take their cottage garbage to the transfer station, but due to some reason, illness or whatever, the transfer station was closed. Big issue coming up was the OPP are starting to ticket people walking on the 400 highway, biking on the 400 highway, or driving their farm equipment on the 400 highway. And this is all a result of the dam and road being closed between the Severn side of Port Severn and the Georgian Bay side of Port Severn. There's no method for these people to get to church, to the grocery stores, to the liquor stores, to anything without going on the 400 highway. And if they don't drive, they have no method of getting into town. And to upset this even more, Severn Township has decided to remove the guides dock, which is the only docking facility in Port Severn. All of our residents from the Georgian Bay Township that live on Little Lake and Gloucester Pool that come into town by boat can no longer dock to come into town. This was a decision made by Severn Township to have the guides dock removed and replaced at a later date. That doesn't work with us, so I'm trying to spearhead something there as well too. Sorry for the lengthy one, but that was my month.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Hazelton.
Good morning. So somewhat similar to what you've heard already, the month of July has not been a calm or quiet month. For me, there have been meetings both with staff and the community. So I had an opportunity to actually have a physical meeting with the CAO and the clerk, and I very much appreciated that. I had a Zoom meeting with our CFO, and although I thought it was going to be a very short one because I'd already completed her survey, it turned out to be much more lengthy, and we had an opportunity to discuss things in much more detail, so I appreciated that very much. I've had several calls with our CAO where I get to ask all kinds of questions, and she patiently listens to those questions and usually gives me answers, so that's wonderful. I've had, it's been a very busy month, calls and meetings with residents, some regarding the Macy Bay matter, and some regarding Brandy's Cove. And I would just offer that those two scenarios are surprisingly similar. So I was delighted to hear Councillor Bocek commenting that his friends at Moore Point were able to provide him good insights on the concerns at Macy Bay. I've also had an opportunity to listen to some of the concerns from one of our Indigenous representatives in the community who has land access issues and some other issues. And hopefully I've been able to point him in the right directions, connect him with the right people at the township, and make progress on that front. So that's about the month of July. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wienko.
Yeah, this has actually been a very busy month too, mostly with phone calls and interaction with some of the residents. The only Zoom meeting I had was SSCA meeting on July the 16th. And so that was that day. I had a number of phone calls on the solid waste issue, as other councillors did, especially when it was to do with door to door. And we discussed that in length at the district, and now they've subcontracted some of that work out. So I think we're getting ahead on that game. On the cost issue, I don't know if Councillor Cooper or, well, I think the mayor has probably seen it. There was a letter in the Financial and Corporate Services agenda last month with the costs of solid waste services for our township. So I think Councillor Cooper should take a look at that. That's probably some of the information that will be coming. But there was a lengthy letter in that corporate services meeting back in June. So hopefully some of that information will be coming to us shortly. The other issue, of course, is a parking issue, both at McCrae Lake and also on White Falls Road at 6 Mile Dam and at the falls itself. Working with 6 Mile Lake Association for the dock at 6 Mile Marina. I think Brad's working on that, and hopefully that dock is going to be replaced this year, and maybe get some work done down there. And the last issue I've been having a few conversations on is algae blooms or algae in general. There was a bloom in Little Go Home Lake, and I received a number of photographs and so on for identification of algae blooms in 6 Mile and Gloucester Pool. So again, SSEA has been very good in helping me identify what they are and providing information to our residents on those blooms.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas.
Oh, thank you. It's also been quite a busy month for me as well, with communications with constituents. It seems to be obviously our new way of communicating, being that most of the meetings are not happening still. Most of the communications for me have been on parking, also the McCrae Lake and White Falls, but also Go Home Lake, of which some of that is being addressed, I know. I've also had a numerous amount of calls actually from Oak Bay on the parking, which Councillor Bochek brought up. The other thing that I've been getting quite a few calls on with some concerns are two things actually. One would be the short-term rentals, which I think we're going to see a little bit more come through in the near future, but I've been getting quite a few calls on that. Also, I've had some very serious concerns coming from Go Home Lake on new tour operators and whether or not they're licensed and so on, which I don't believe has anything to do with the township. But again, I've had lots and lots of calls about that. The other thing is on the solid waste, just for the marinas and the garbage bins. So I think it's all just across the board, very similar to our other councillors, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
No library board in the last month, and the SegBay meeting was canceled due to lack of quorum. I can only imagine in the case of SegBay how business people are trying to get their operations back into profitable position. So I'm sure they're exceedingly busy. So I'm sure I understand why that meeting was couldn't be held. So that was that one. Mostly what I've been doing, other than attending the Cottage Cottages Association boat parade, which took place on the 1st and in place of their annual regatta. I represented council there. It was a lot of fun, nice day. Actually, it's a beautiful day. That was my one big public item. And then after that, it was just really fielding calls with regards to development up at Wawatasi. Finally, people are sort of reacting to these things. It's nice to see that people are actually getting their voices and making sure they're heard. But that was it. No other big issues that came up that occupied my time with regards to my constituency. Thanks.
Thank you. In my case, my list of meetings is relatively short. Ms. Gumby and I met with people from the district on waste, the solid waste situation on July 16th. July 22nd, during the finance committee meeting there was a report on garbage costs, and I would plan on sharing that with everyone. It wasn't nearly as informative as we might hope, but nonetheless somewhat informative. And I also, and I'm sorry, I have to make reference to the fact they also gave us a OPP report on costs, and it's absolutely absurd. They gave us, and I might have the count wrong, but maybe 49 pages worth of data on the entire district without anything that represents an executive summary or a quick overview. And to me, that's bureaucracy at its worst, in my humble opinion, when they can overwhelm you with data but not actually give you anything useful. August 4th, speaking with the Georgian Bay General Hospital on some of their situations and financing. And August 6th, I actually had a meeting with the new owners of Paragon Marine and South Bay Cove, which was just an introduction, and it was interesting to meet them and hear what their outlook is. And unfortunately, to make reference to the fact that personal matters within my family have been very distracting the last 2 months, and therefore that has taken a fair portion of my time and certainly energy. But going forward, I want to create a solid waste report just based on what I've learned over the last couple of months, which isn't too much, unfortunately. And next week, the AMO conference, which normally takes place, well, last year took place in Ottawa, it's supposed to take place in Ottawa this year, is now all going to be electronic, but that's going to take a fair bit of my time over Monday and Tuesday. We have quite a few, we being Ms. Gunby and I have quite a few delegations scheduled, and hope to get some of our situations in front of the province. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Gunby.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Worship. So the AMO delegations that we have next week, a couple of them are with the district, but most of them are by ourselves. We have the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Health, Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Housing, and the Ministry of Indigenous Affairs. There's still a couple we're waiting to hear back from for timeframes. Dr. Charles Gardner from the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit is still recommending that we do not open our offices full-time and that we do not have in-person council meetings. So what I'm hoping that we can do starting maybe August 24th-ish is open to the public for appointment only so that people can start getting back to somewhat normal. And we haven't had any concerns, as far as I know, with people not being able to access staff or get anything done that they require, but this will help those who are not fancy with emails. And the only other thing I have to say is that yesterday with the Alan Weisram application, the office staff had to change the resolution because it was given to us in the negative, and you cannot have a resolution in the negative. So we had to say that be it resolved that staff recommend that council adopt the official plan amendment and that council adopt the zoning bylaw amendment. And nowhere in the actual report did it clearly state that staff did not support the official plan amendment. So just so council's aware, it doesn't change any decision that was made yesterday or anything. We just have to replace the report on the agenda with a note stating clearly that council did not support the OPA, just in case there is an appeal, and that will help us support staff's decision. And that is all I had to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's start, have a couple of staff reports before we break for lunch. And the first staff report on our agenda is Financial Services 2020-19 in regards to an insurance claim. Ms. Boutiette, are you the one who's going to be presenting this? Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. So this report is in relation to two claims. This is not a report that comes periodically. It is a report that's matter specific. So in the last month, we've had two claims come forward. So I included them both in one report. The resolution is requesting that we do fund the deductible on the electrical matter. So it was an electrical surge. It damaged some equipment in the fire hall and the admin building. We're looking for council's approval to go ahead and fund the deductible. And on the second one, it is a vehicle accident. We are pretty sure that there will not be a deductible because we are not at fault. However, the replacement of the truck has to happen, and we're pretty confident to say that the insurance payout will not cover the entire replacement cost of the vehicle. And therefore, we are also requesting the funds to be able to fund the replacement of that vehicle. Even though we haven't had the conclusion from the adjusters at this point, we're kind of just, before we lag too long, we're kind of asking for a blanket resolution for the authority to move forward when we do get the adjuster's conclusion.
Sometimes the space bar doesn't work. Thank you very much. Even though I know you have it in front of you, I'll read the resolution and then I'll see if there's any discussion. The resolution reads, be it resolved, the council receives the report 2020 insurance claims year-to-date July, and that council authorizes the use of the insurance reserve to pay for the deductible on the July 2020 property claim, and the council authorizes the use of the insurance reserve to fund the replacement of the truck at a total cost of $55,000 plus HST, where a maximum of $45,000 will be drawn from the insurance reserve. And that council authorizes an exception to the procurement policy to use a fair market value comparison and negotiation as a means of procurement for the replacement of the vehicle in order to expedite the process. Council, any discussion? I'm not seeing any hands, so then I will ask all those in favor. I am seeing lots of hands. That is carried. Okay. Sustainability Department 2005 Township of Georgian Bay Honeybee Festival. Ms. Schneier, I presume you will be presenting that.
Good morning. Hang on, I just gotta shut the curtain. The sun is in my eyes, a terrible problem.
You have a certain glow about you. Can we say that?
It's nice. It's an aura. Nice to see you all, your worship and council. The report is with respect to the Honeybee Festival. I won't belabor the point that I wrote in the report, but it's a matter of coming to you today and getting confirmation as to whether you do or do not want to pursue the Honeybee Festival all in 2020.
Well, thank you. You may not belabor the point, but I'm certainly going to bemoan it. But having said that, Councillor Bocek.
I know it's.
I think in the interest of all the participants that take place in the 9-hole scramble and the run and the marketplace, I think the COVID-19 protocols that are in place really shouldn't allow this to move forward in its entire format. Perhaps one or two of the events that are that Jennifer seems to feel that it's safe to do, I wouldn't be opposed to, but in general, I think in these times, we probably need to take a little bit of a back seat on this and just wait it out.
Councillor Jarvis.
I will also bemoan it. I thought it was a great festival. I thought it went very, very well. I was very excited for how things progressed during that day. And I think it's unfortunate, but in this day and age with the pandemic the way it is and no surefire way of knowing how to stem it, and certainly not by having a group of people together, we're going to do it. I think the best bet will be to postpone it, and I regret that deeply, because I think going through with this year would provide some momentum for it, and this really does stall things. I was actually kind of hoping that maybe by the time we hit October, things would be a little bit would have eased up enough that we could probably look at having it, but that's short notice. And so I think the wise decision is to postpone it, or not have it this year, have it next year, which again, I really regret.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas. Was your hand up?
Yeah, it was actually. Okay, I also think it's very regrettable that, we not have it this year. And I agree that under the the conditions that we're in right now, that we don't have it. However, I would ask if there's any way, because I would hate to see this not proceed next year if the climate is available for us to do so. If there's any way we could do some sort of marketing, Jennifer, or maybe I put this to council, just to let the public know why we are not, obviously it's obvious reasons, but to some, but it's very much, excuse me, it's very much a festival that we would like to see happen next year, and to stay tuned for it. Is there something that we can do to keep it in the public's mind and not lose the momentum that we had from last year?
Schneier.
Thank you, through your worship. Councillor Douglas, that's a very good idea. We will send out a press release if that's okay with our CAO, that we will let the people know that have signed up for the various events and we have their content and information. We'll also update the website to make sure that people are aware that we have deferred it or taken pause for a year. And we'll be able to turn it into a positive spin. We'll do some social media as well with it. And then we'll leave it alone until we're ready to talk about it again in the new year.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis, haven't you already spoken to this?
Yes, I have, but I am finished. I enjoyed that festival way too much. We got to create significant buzz on this. Ha ha ha. But listen, is it possible? I presume people already stepped up tentatively to participate this year. Can we acknowledge via the social media their commitment to the festival so that at least we get promotion for them out on the street as well? That's all I was going to add.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper, you seem to be waving.
Through your worship, absolutely.
My apologies. I was waving at our painters. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sure we have their support. Seeing no other hands, the resolution reads, be it resolved that council directs staff to postpone all activities related to the Honey Bee Festival scheduled for October 3rd, 2020, and return to council mid-2021 for a review of the present COVID-19 criteria and environment. All those in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Next,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on our list is Operations Department 2020-13, McTier Arena opening. Mr. Sokash.
Thank you, Your Worship. In light of the COVID pandemic, staff felt it was appropriate to get affirmation from council with respect to reopening the McTier Arena. There are protocols that have been put into place by Skate Canada, Skate Ontario, minor hockey for Ontario and minor hockey for Canada. We've taken those protocols, they're all very similar, put them into one document. We've been in touch with the Muskoka Skating Club as well as the minor hockey groups. They are aware of the protocols and they've been very supportive with respect to their responsibilities when it comes to letting people into the arena, monitoring who comes into the arena, taking down their contact information should we need to do contact tracing, as well as understanding the limitations on the number of people allowed on the ice and in the rink at any time. I guess the most significant change on the operations is between ice usages where there's typically a 10-minute break, it'll now be a 40 or 50-minute break in order to lock down the arena, get everybody out of the arena, allow our staff to do sanitization, and then let people come back in. Participants will have to come to the rink dressed with the exception of their skates, which we will have chairs in the lobby for them to use to get dressed. All of the dressing rooms will be closed. In addition, with respect to people coming in to watch, only one person, excuse me, one guardian per participant on the ice will be allowed in the rink, and they won't be allowed in the ice surface or into the stands. They'll have to stay in the lobby. So we're proposing that we put the ice in and be ready to go at the second week of September. The skating club and the hockey club are ready to start then if the ice is in, and we're just looking for council affirmation on this proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. And just to confirm, I'll read the resolution and then we'll ask the questions. The resolution reads, be it resolved that council confirms that the McTier Arena ice will be installed in order to have the ice available for use during the second week of September, and that ice rentals only be made available to the McTier Skating Club and the Muskoka Rock for the remainder of 2020 and only from Monday to Friday, and that additional costs associated with the additional cleaning and the sanitation of the arena between user groups be absorbed by the township. And that's just going to lead to my first thing. I believe I read in your report, Mr. Sokash, that you're estimating those additional costs at approximately $50 per day.
Through the mayor, that's correct. Typically, we have only 2 to 3 hours of rental a day. So there'd be an additional half hour between the first 2 rentals for cleaning. The cleaning at the end of the day would be about the same amount of time as we typically have, since the dressing rooms will be closed and they won't need to be cleaned.
Okay, thank you. Councilors, any comments or questions? Councillor Douglas, followed by Councillor Bocek, followed by Councillor Rienko.
Thank you. Brad, I think this is a positive thing for the community. It sounds like you've already reached out to the Muskoka Rock and the skating club. They have indicated to you that they would go forward with the protocols that have been put in place.
Through the mayor, that's correct. In fact, the skating club was good enough to submit a consolidated set of protocols that were right along the lines of what Skate Canada had suggested, and were consistent with what minor hockey is requiring as well.
Okay, I'd be in support of this only because, well, for a lot of reasons, but I think it's a good thing for the community if they have their protocols in place and understand what's expected to help our youth kind of get back to a little bit of normalcy. So I'd be in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bocek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brad, we've heard from the OHL that their season is not going to start until December the 1st. There's been no word from the OHF, the OMHA, of when their season's going to start, or if their season is even going to get underway. That's not expected until September for them to do an announcement. So I'm wondering if we're a little premature on opening up in September and foregoing all the costs when there may be no usage of the arena facility by any hockey organizations this year. And that's my first statement. And secondly, if in the fall the province goes back to stage 2, I mean, obviously we're in a time right now where the COVID virus is not rampant, but it could return in the fall. Do we have a plan to, if this happens, to mothball the marina at that time? And is it in the budget? Because I know it's very expensive to take the ice out and mothball the arena for the next year. Just wondering if you have a contingency plan for that. So if you, basically the first part of it is there may be no usage until December or at all. And if so, what are your course of actions?
Through the mayor, my understanding, some of the other leagues of not starting up, and that's with respect to playing games, is partially financial as well as partially body contact, being too close, having to have too many people on the ice. The protocol that's been proposed by the skating club as well as minor hockey, sorry, not skating club, Skate Ontario, as well as Ontario Minor Hockey, is to limit the number of people on ice to 9 participants and 1 coach. There isn't any body contact and there aren't any games. So it is only skill development. With respect to, if we go backwards to stage 2, the most reasonable thing for the township to do would be to take the ice out. Even though there would be a labor expense associated with that, we would save a fair bit of money in electricity for keeping the plant cool and the building cool. So that's where, that would be the step we would take.
That's great. It sounds like you've got it under control there, Brad. Thank you.
Councillor Rienko.
I was just curious, to say, so the hockey group will just be doing training and so on, but you only have them using or availability of the ice between Monday to Friday. Wouldn't these kids be more available on the weekends? Why not Saturday, Sunday when they're more available? These hockey teams I wouldn't think are available during the week, unless it's obviously in the evening. So why not Saturday, Sunday?
Through the mayor, historically, minor hockey has always had the practices during the week. On the weekends, well, you would have one-off games or one-off rentals. Maybe the men's league would book it, but historically, it's always been through the week, as has the skating club. So we're just being consistent with what they've done in the past. and continuing that now.
And just as a follow-up, you say this is for the remainder of 2020. So sometime in December or January, you'll review it, and especially if hockey starts up again, then there will be another review of the use of the rink.
Through the mayor, that is correct, and we would bring that back to council.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to? Councillor Jarvis.
Brad, is it, I see, I understand from what you're saying when I read that the protocols are in place for Skate Canada and for hockey. Who is left to do the policing? We aren't going to be doing the policing on this, correct?
Through the mayor, the policing is done either by minor hockey or by the skating club. And I guess you could say we're policing the people that are doing the policing. So if we see that there are problems in the rink with people not wearing the masks, too many people, kids running around, we'll talk to the organizers. If they're not able to straighten it out, then we would have to look at either they're stopping, preventing them from using the rink or canceling their bookings or some other matter.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no other hands raised. Does anyone require me to read the motion again? All right, then I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sokash. Okay. I don't know if I have a motion on this one, but the next topic is the Miner Bay parking. And I believe, is that you as well, Mr. Sokash, I imagine?
Through the mayor, that's correct. And there is a motion under the recommendation in the report.
Yes, I see that. I just don't see it in front of me.
Oh, okay.
In the list that I was provided.
So at the last council meeting, staff were requested to come back with some options to address the parking issue that's ongoing at Miners Bay. One of the suggestions was a pay and display system and a permit system similar to what we are using at Port Severn Park. The concern that staff have is if we put that in place, we suspect that a lot of people will still be using it and we will still have not enough parking for the number of permits or the number of people that are willing to pay to park, that it won't dramatically reduce the usage. And therefore, as a long-term view, we think it's best to look towards expanding the parking, which would likely involve some blasting out of rock, purchasing some property from the MNR and creating a larger parking area. Staff and Tatham's have been working on this, both the land, acquiring some land and looking at some blasting for a turnaround at Miners Bay. And staff felt that if council agreed with this approach, it would be best to roll it into the work that Tatham's already has ongoing and that we provide them with a contract to carry on with the work.
Okay, thank you. What I'm going to do is I'll read the motion and then we'll see if there's any discussion. The motion reads, be it resolved, the council directs staff waive the procedural policy and to issue a contract to CC Tatham's with an upset limit of $10,000 with the following objectives. Complete a survey, identify areas where the Miners Bay parking lot can be expanded. Prepare a cost estimate for expanding the parking area. Meet with the Ministry of Ontario, Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry regarding the purchase of the additional land adjacent to the existing parking lot to facilitate expansion, and that the works be funded from the consulting fees allowance from the Operations Department budget. Council, does anybody wish to discuss this matter? Councillor Douglas, followed by Councillor Jarvis, followed by Councillor Rienko.
So thank you, Brad, for your report on that. I don't disagree with the pay and parking at this point, just based on the fact that we just plain and simply don't have enough parking. I mean, just to give a little bit of context to council members that maybe have not been to Go Home Lake, there are over 450 homes on this lake, of which 95, I'm going to say 95% or more are water access. So the marinas, unfortunately, do not have enough parking for everyone. And I don't believe that they have the space to, well, I know for a fact they don't in both cases, to expand that parking. Having said that, I really do think it's necessary that we expand. If you'd been around on the long weekend to see the kind of parking that was going on, it was just, I don't even know how our bylaw, or if we had an emergency, would even get down to the government dock to attend to that. It is an ongoing problem, and hopefully if council feels it is something that they would entertain, and I certainly hope so for the residents. You know, if we do go ahead and do the roundabout, there I believe will be some rock coming out of that for fill that maybe could be used for the parking area, and maybe Brad can expand on that. But I do think it's something that we really need to look at. I mean, from a safety perspective as well as for the residents. I mean, we do have a lot of people up here, and this is becoming, every year just gets worse and worse. So I obviously would be very much in support of it, knowing the problems. But I do encourage any council members that have questions about this to just take a quick trip around on a long weekend to see what we're dealing with. I mean, never mind a long weekend, just a regular weekend, especially Friday night when everybody's trying to load their boats at the government dock. Anyways, okay, thanks for the report, Brad.
Thank you. Councilor Jarvis.
I think Councillor Douglas just answered my question, and that was, are we dealing with a one-off because of COVID? And this obviously applies to all the parking situations we're dealing with right now, but I gather Miners Bay is more of a long-term situation that's got to be resolved. So that makes sense to me. But I'm concerned that we don't want to start throwing money at something that's going to resolve itself maybe next year when there's no COVID issues to deal with and people are going off elsewhere as opposed to the small lakes around here. But again, I think Councillor Douglas just answered my inquiry on that. That's fine.
Thank you. Councilor Rienko.
A couple of issues. I assume if you're going to be putting paid parking in, that would be paid parking for transients. I assume that the local residents will be free, and so that's important. But I also would like to get a letter from the Go Home Lake Association supporting this. I don't want to force this paid parking on them if they don't support it. So I think it's important that we get some kind of a letter from the Go Home Lake community in support of paid parking for transients. Again, this we already have it at Port 7. We might have it at Miners Bay. There are other issues like 6 Mile Lake has 2 parking areas. I'm not proposing or suggesting that they get paid parking there unless it becomes a problem. So I think we should do each site separately and not have a broad brush across all the parking areas that we have in the township. The last issue, I think, Brad, if you're going to be making more space at Miners Bay, and I wouldn't mind getting some feedback from Cynthia on this, there's a distinct possibility that the district will be looking for land for a waste depot, a manned waste depot site for Go Home Lake. So if you're going to be expanding the parking lot, maybe they could have some area too for their waste depot site. So if you're going to stop blasting, maybe blast a bigger area for them, because they're possibly be going looking for land for their waste depot, and this may be to do both at the same site.
Mr. Sokash, did you wish to respond?
Sure. With respect to the passes and the Cottage Association, I can't remember if it was Councillor Douglas or the fire chief and I have had a discussion about needing to have them very much involved in whatever the process is going to be with respect to giving out passes, issuing passes, how guests will be dealt with, and whatever that process is. We would like them to either come up with it or to provide quite a bit of input into how it's administered, because the last thing we want to do is create another disaster. With respect to the garbage, we have had very, very preliminary discussions with the district regarding potentially opening up that parking area or expanding it, and they are quite interested, if we do that, to oversizing it so that there's an area for a proper garbage or transfer site to be installed.
Thank you. I see Councillor Bocheck, Councillor Cooper, and Councillor Douglas so far. So let's go Bocheck, Cooper, and Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brad, just looking at the economics of this, will we be using our sustainability officer to find out if there's any funding available for this project, being that it's solving some provincial issues and some township issues? And B, off the top of the head, do you know what the revenues were for the Port Severn parking area for 2019?
I'll definitely be speaking to our sustainability officer about funding for this. The revenues for Port Severn Park are usually on the order of $20,000 a year.
Okay, and it's very preliminary, but do you have any estimates without acquiring land, what a parking lot like this would cost to construct?
I'm thinking we're into the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, that last number was a bit of a shocker. But I'm wondering if we're looking at this a little bit in isolation. Do we not have a transfer station bin site unmanned in this location? And if we do, it's my sense that going forward, that unmanaged bin sites, in other words, not the marinas, not the transfer stations, but the unmanaged bin sites, like the one that's, I believe, there, and there's also one in Honey Harbor, are probably going to be forced to be closed. And if we have land there, wouldn't that provide us with parking? So that's my first question for you, I guess, Brad. And then I have a question for Cynthia about who exactly is using, who would be using this parking, or who the additional people would be. So start with my question for Brad, and then I'll move over to Cynthia.
Sure. Through the mayor, I would estimate if the bins were removed, we'd only gain maybe 10 parking spots, which with the number of cars in there, I don't think would solve the problem.
But it would provide us with some additional spots.
It definitely would.
And there's a high likelihood that we're not going to be able to have unmanaged bin sites in the future. So that's one issue. But Cynthia, maybe you could answer this, and that is the people that are parking who will be parking in this future site, are they water access residents? And if they are, do they have a slip at a marina, or are there not any slips available at marinas? I'm trying to understand sort of what we're providing here. Many of us pay for parking, and both for boat slip and for cars at our marinas. And so what are we doing here?
Through you, if I can answer, I'll try and answer to the best of my ability. So the marinas that we have, first of all, we have 450 homes on the lake here. We have 2 marinas that cannot accommodate everyone. And that's unfortunate, but they don't have the land space for it. And my understanding is through their commercial zoning, they can only have so many spaces per acreage of land. So that's one of the biggest problems. So we have quite a number because we have so many water access. I mean, I'm going to say that we maybe have 20 homes in total out of those 450 that are drive-in. These are people that are from the lake that are bringing boats in, as well as people that have a space to park their boat but not their car because of the land shortage or the unavailability for the marinas to expand. The water lots themselves, I think MNRF is always willing to expand those, but there is no place for them to park their boats, or their cars rather. So there's a huge percentage of these are go home lakers, but we also have a very huge, percentage of people coming in from off the lake that are campers because they have access through the Musquash River to get to Georgian Bay. So we have 2 coming in for canoeing. We have a huge camping population on this lake. So it's a real combination. And what the number split is, I really couldn't say, Peter, because I personally don't know, other than just being here for so many years. knowing that we do have a lot of residents, I mean, a lot. I'd say most of the lot is taken by residents that park there. And in terms of the garbage bins, well, I think the district sort of, they're very preliminary, talked about putting bins, some sort of a man site in Go Home Lake because of the number of residents we have on this lake and just the distance they would have to travel. And that, well, we just all think the garbage will end up in the lake. People won't go to the transfer station and line up for 2 hours on Sunday night. But I think if you take those garbage bins away, Brad's probably right. We maybe have 10 parking spaces that would be able to, you know, give us 10 more. But I think given that we probably have more like 200 people, that's really, it's just not even adequate. If you came down this road on a long weekend or even some summer weekends, there are cars parked on both sides all the way up the road heading up towards the 400, and that's getting worse, and that's with trailers. So I hope that answers a bit of your questions, but it's more for the residents. Although I do think because we have so many campers and so many other people that use this, use the parking lot, that if we were able to do a combination of having district involved, and maybe if district does get involved with putting a manned station in, they would provide the land, which is something that I'm hoping, because I think it's a municipal parking lot. Is it not, Brad?
Through the mayor, I believe we own the land that the parking lot is on, but it only goes to the far side of the ditch, and then it's M&R property.
Okay, so I'm just hoping that the M&R, if they're looking, or not M&R, if the district is looking at, you know, putting a manned site in there, which I think makes total sense for the, you know, the population size, that they will also be looking at cooperating with the township in a cooperation to obtain land. It's a fairly large scale. It's something that's been needed for many, many years, and it's just getting worse. So I think we really need to seriously look at it, and hopefully between the district and the work that Brad is doing and some funding from the province, that we will be able to achieve this. And also at the end of the day, when it's finished, be able to put paid parking in there to create some revenue down the road for all of the people that are parking there, because it's a huge population coming in that's using this lake, and they have the right to. We have a lot of MNRF land or Crown land for camping, and again, a lot of tours come through here with kayaks and canoes and so on. I don't know if that answered the question. It was a little lengthy, sorry.
Councillor Cooper, I'm going to give you a subsequent, and then we'll give Councillor Douglas a chance to actually make the comments you probably wanted to make before your question. And then I also saw Councillor Hazelton's hand.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to caution us all here with respect to the moves we make. And that is that I think we are hearing from the district and from the ministry that unmanned transfer stations aren't going to work. And to man them, we are already paying way more for solid waste than any other municipality on a per capita basis in the district of Muskoka. So we've got huge costs already. So to have another manned station local like that would be quite remarkable. And are we going to do another one of those in Honey Harbor? I don't think so. So I just think we need to think about that, and also think about the growth. In other words, in 10 years, is this going to be 200 cars or is it going to be 400 cars? And that also becomes an issue. So I'm not sure we've got a full picture as to what the future might look like, and what sort of what we can afford to do or not do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Douglas.
All valid points that you're bringing up, Councillor Cooper, but I think this problem, I don't foresee that we're going to be doubling to whatever 400 or 500 cars, although I think that's what we're almost at now. And as far as a manned bin site goes, I think that will get looked at through the Waste Management Committee. And I think you'll find that, you know, Go Home Lake is a little bit unique for the fact that it's all water access. And taking the garbage and putting it, I mean, this has been fairly well discussed already at a preliminary level, but taking garbage off and driving it to the transfer site really probably isn't going to happen. If you had even 50% of those people pulling up to a transfer site on a Sunday night, lining up, I can pretty much guarantee it'd only happen once. And then after that, it's going in the ditch, or it's going in the water, or it's going at the back of the properties, as it was in early days of my father's times, or they actually just burned everything or just threw it over a cliff at the back of the property. So I do agree with what you're saying. It's very costly to have man sites, but what the cost of cleaning up the environment and not having this area would be quite devastating, I believe. But that's something that I think will come up with the waste management once they do the report. And I think it's up to, we'll leave it up to staff to do further investigation on anything that is required for council to get clarification on.
I just want to remind council that this discussion is about getting a study done on the parking area and its expansion, and not about solids. Even though I do really agree to the point that if we're going to get some land for the MNRF, it would be good to talk to the district at the same time.
Okay, and I just have one further point, if I may, Peter. Mayor Coetzee, as far as the working with the Go Home Lake Association for comment, I agree that that should be done. But I also like to caution you that they really cannot speak on behalf of everyone on this lake, because I'm not sure what the membership is. You might want to check into that, but it may be somewhere around 40%. And this being a large population, I think we need to keep that in mind, have their involvement, but we have another fairly large portion of the lake that are not members. Thank you.
Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you. I had a question for you, Brad. You talked about parking permits and who's paying for parking. Was it your intent that anybody using the parking area would pay for it?
Through the mayor, what I had anticipated is that council would want residents to be able to get a pass or maybe 2 passes, and any in addition, any above that, they would have to be paid for, or if people are just coming in for a day, they would have to pay for that. But that is something that would have to get approved by council.
Okay, so asking somewhat of a rhetorical question, if you're going to start funding parking for people who are going to Go Home Lake cottages, are you now going to start funding the parking of all of the 10 or more marinas in Honey Harbor who charge for parking for all the people going to their cottage? I think this is a really concerning precedent. As Councillor Cooper said, everyone who comes through any marina in Honey Harbor is paying $10 a day and $25 for a long weekend for parking. And if you're going to spend township money to build a parking lot in the frame of hundreds of thousands of dollars, then you should also be aware that if you're going to do, first of all, that investment, that there are going to be a lot of people looking over your shoulder to see what you're doing and saying, well, why are you giving all of those cottagers on Go Home Lake free parking when the rest of us all have to pay? So that's one comment, somewhat of a rhetorical question. I'm not in favor of what you're trying to do. I think we need to solve the problem, but I think we need to be aware of a precedent that you're setting, because I can tell you that just in Honey Harbor and Cognachine alone, we have in the neighborhood of about just under 2,000 properties, all of who have parking. And I would suggest that most properties up in this neck of the woods buy 2 or 3 or more parking passes, all at mega dollars per year. And for us to then look over your shoulder and say, hey, you're giving all the people in Go Home Lake free parking, what gives? Anyways, shifting gears completely. In the world of private enterprise, it sounds to me like you have an opportunity to work with MNRF to carve out some additional land that could be made available for parking. And I'm a great fan of putting control for a lot of these things back in the hands of private enterprise. And I'm wondering, it may be tough for private enterprise to nudge MNRF to carve out some land that they could acquire. But it would seem to me that there should be an appetite at Go Home Lake Marina, Miners Bay Marina, sorry, to significantly expand their land footprint. And maybe what's needed is a conversation between the township, Miners Bay Marina, and MNRF to find out ways in which MNRF could allow Miners Bay to acquire more land, and in the process solve all kinds of problems. Because if Miners Bay were to acquire additional land, that could satisfy the parking issues, and of course they would charge for it, and that would be expected. But if they have this additional land, they could also have room for a private bin site, and that would solve the garbage issue. So we could solve all kinds of problems if we found a way to push the private operator. And I can assure you, based on the calculations that I have done for the marinas in Honey Harbor, managing garbage on a private basis is a significant revenue potential for any marina, given what we are being charged from the district perspective. So there are huge business opportunities here that would certainly justify a local operator like Miners Bay to get involved more seriously with providing parking for the community and other things. So I think we should be considering that big picture and solving the big problem. But I am fully in favor of this resolution to allow us to get a clear handle on what likely needs to be done to provide the space that is needed. And the things that I've been talking about are really next step conversations that should be had once we have a clear understanding of what the effort and scope might be. Thank you.
You know, we're getting quite lengthy discussions here on what I thought was going to be a relatively simple matter, but I see Councillor Douglas's hand and Councillor Bochuk, and I think let's get to the resolution relatively soon.
Okay, I'll just take this one on. I just quick comment to Councillor Hazelton's comments. Very good suggestion, like extremely good suggestion. I mean, we need to look at the big picture, and I'm sure a conversation should be held with Miners Bay Marina. But anyways, we can talk about that one again. That's a good suggestion.
Councillor Bochuk.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is two different situations here, and I'm going to support the report from Brad that's coming through. Cognisheen, Honey Harbor, they have access to a lot of parking. They have Penetang Bay, Midland Bay. I have many friends that have cottages in Cognisheen, but they come out of different areas than Honey Harbor. There's quite a bit of access through Midland, Penetang, Port McNichol, Victoria Harbor, etc. So yes, if you're looking for a thumbs up from me, you've got it. I think this report is needed, and then we can have a fruitful discussion when it comes down to nuts and bolts and money.
Okay, the resolution reads, once I get back on screen, be it resolved that council direct staff would waive the procedural policy and issue a contract to CC Tathams with an upset limit of $10,000 with the following objectives. Complete a survey and identify areas where the Miners Bay parking lot can be expanded. Prepare a cost estimate for expanding the parking area. Meet with the Ministry of Ontario, Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry regarding the purchase of additional land adjacent to the existing parking lot to facilitate expansion, and that the works be funded from the consulting fees allowance from the Operations Department budget. Seeing no hands, I'm going to ask all those in favor. All right, and that is carried. And I'm going to suggest now that it's 12:41 that we have a lunch break before we get into the clerk's report and the 4 items of new business. So I don't know how quickly everybody can eat, whether you want to call it for 1 o'clock or give yourself more than 20 minutes. Half an hour? Okay, let's go for 10 minutes after 1 to reconvene this meeting. Half an hour off for lunch. Thank you very much.